this. Now it should show VCV Rack. Hello, and welcome to Modular Mornings. This is going to be my little voyage in 2022 to make a new piece of modular, I guess we'll call it music, every day. I don't know how long it'll last, but let's see. So if you've never seen VCV Rack before, it's a virtual version of a modular synthesizer setup, a really good one, and it's free. You can download all sorts of modules and stuff from their website, including the app itself, and then there are user-made modules that you can download that are all quite good, and especially reproductions of actual physical modules are pretty interesting. For now, we're going to just do the basic ones that come with VCV. You'll see in my my module browser here that I've got a bunch of them, but for now we're just going to do the basic ones. So if you've never opened VCV before, you'll start with a couple of modules to try and kind of get you settled. But I cleared everything, and I'm going to do a completely blank one, and then I'll save that as a template for what we will use for all the other ones as a starting point. So the first thing that you need to do is you have to have an audio out. So the default one for VCV is audio 8 here. You have to set what it's going to. For me, that's using this direct sound option. And then we're going to go to our Focusrite USB because that's going to be the clearest audio for you. So now that is our output. And now we can start making stuff. But before we do that, I like to make things in stereo, especially since you can do some fun, interesting things with syncopated rhythms between left and right headphones. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back into our module browser, which is, by the way, this is right clicking it to enter, and then down under VCV is where you can get your modules. So now that we are in VCV, we're going to get not just one mixer, but two mixers. So there's going to be a left channel and a right channel. So we're going to send those left to the left, which is the left side here, number 1, and then right to the right. Okay. Next, we are going to, because I like to look at it, add an oscilloscope. That's going to be the output of the left channel and the output of the right channel. You know, I didn't know that it's going to pick up my voice in VCV. That's interesting. So that's me talking here. Cool. So now that we've got that, next thing we're going to have to do is make some sound. So for something extremely basic, the first thing that we're going to do is get a VCO, which is a voltage controlled oscillator. And so I'm going to go ahead and plug one of these in. As you can see, it has different wave forms. It has a sine, a triangle, a saw, and a square. So I'm going to go ahead and just pick one of these and put it in one of the channels, and you'll start hearing essentially a beep. There it is. There's a long beep in the left channel. What we can do is turn this to have a little bit more of an idea of what the sound looks like. Put these up to 50%. You see this very tiny wave in the middle here. I mean, the blue one's going bananas because that's my voice. But the little tiny ripple when I'm not talking. So that is to stop that because it's just a constant tone, which isn't interesting. But what we can do next is add what's called an LFO, or a low frequency oscillator. Now, the thing about low frequency oscillators is they can be used for various things, such as a clock source. So, if you're trying to do tempo or something like that. But in order to do that, we need something that's called a VCA. Here's a VCA. I like this one, VCA2, because it has two quick, simple inputs to use, as opposed to the other one, which I think just isn't as useful. So here's something that we can do very quick. Let's go ahead and put this on the square wave of the LFO. As you can see, it's beeping here. And let's turn it up to do a little bit quicker. Yep. Okay. Then we're going to put our sine wave from our VCO into that VCA. And we're going to take that, and we're going to put it in the input, and now it should sound like a constant beep. But as you can hear, it's kind of clicky, which isn't great. But that's because you're hearing the hard square shape from the LFO every single time that it opens, you hear that click, and every time it closes, you hear that click, which isn't great. So we're going to go ahead and stop that now. So the next thing that we can do is add what's called an ADSR, which stands for attack, decay, sustain, and release. So instead of going directly to our linear input here for our VCA, we're going to go with that clock, we're going to go to the gate of our ADSR. And now when we put this as that linear and put this in our jack, you'll hear what this sounds like. Kind of a washy. That's because the attack is kind of here in the center. Attack determines how fast it gets to its open state, and decay determines how long it stays at that, and then sustain is how it descends down into what is called the release, which is how long until it closes. So if we turn the attack way down, then it'll be more pingy, but it'll not have that percussive click that we heard earlier. So now you hear a steady little beeping pulse, which is a good start. But still, we aren't quite musically interesting. So I'm actually going to move this VCA over with the ADSR over here. So now we have our LFO, which is our clock, our VCO, which is creating our pitch, our ADSR, which is creating what's called our envelope, and then the envelope is controlling how this VCA opens and closes. So we're getting pretty close to something that sounds like it could be musical. But what we're going to do next, make some room here. We're going to put in a VCF, a voltage controlled filter. And now, instead of our sound going directly to our VCA, it'll go to our voltage controlled filter. And then that will use the low pass filter output. Put that here. It's much quieter, but we can turn it up. And we can add some resonance. And since it's still quiet, we can actually turn up the drive as well. Something that at least sounds like it could be used as like an instrument. So let's go ahead and turn us off for a second, because we're going to do this exact same setup. We're going to copy all of the modules except for the VCA to do our right channel. We're not going to copy the LFO either, because that's going to be our universal clock. So at the start, it won't necessarily be all that interesting. So now we can do the exact same thing. Sine wave will go into the input. The gate will be the square wave. The output of this will be the linear control of the VCA. And the input here will be the low-pass filter from our VCF. And now we go this to left, and we go this to right, we have stereo sound. But a stereo beeping sound isn't all that interesting. So what we can do next is add something to change the pitch. Just turning off the beeping sounds while we do that. So the first thing we can do is add what's called a sequencer. Here's a sequencer. What we can also do to make it interesting is duplicate this. So we have a sequencer for our left channel and a sequencer for our right channel. We're going to use this external clock source, but in order to do that, we want these things to be synced up to be on the same clock. So we're going to need another module, which I don't think that base VCV has. Maybe it has some kind of button option. What's this? This will work. Pulses, I think. Yeah. Okay. It should be able to send a trigger. So we go to our reset here, and our reset. We want it to be the same pulse. So, okay. And then when we put our external clock on here, and our external clock on here, clicking this should reset it. Just a little easier to see if you turn all the gates off. So I'm just checking to make sure that that worked as intended. Like I said, I didn't know that base VCV had a good trigger option. Yeah, those are synced up. Those lights go at the same time. Great. So now that we have that, let's do something interesting rhythmically. So this one will do this. Just why not? Why not that? And then this one will do this. This one. And then this. So now, let's make these our gate instead of our consistent pulsing. This will be our left. This will be our right. Now let's hook that back up to our left and right. So now you should have a ping pong effect if you're wearing headphones going between your left and right headphone output, which already is much more musically interesting than what we've had previously. But as you can see in the sequencer, not only is there these gate options down at the bottom, there are also these knobs which we can use for various things. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this FMCV for each of these VCOs, which FM is frequency modulation, and we're going to use those to do something fun with the pitch. So in order to keep things consistent, I'm going to manually set these to be 25% input. So if you right click on them, you can input a value manually. If you put 25, it'll be 25%. So now these are both at 25%. And we can use our rows in the FM input here to then set pitches. So we'll start on, let's have them both start on the same pitch, and then we'll just tweak these knobs a little bit, right? All right, that's something, right? It's got some movement to it. texture of the sound. So what we can do is then use another, not a VCF, sorry, this is on a module. We need another LFO. So here we have another LFO. And what we can do with another LFO is we can do something like a sine wave, and we can attach it to the VCF. And here's what's going to happen to the right channel. And if we turn up this CV, now we get some dynamics as well. Let's do another one of those for the left channel. Oops, I clicked disable. I meant to click duplicate. Yep. So the thing to know about VCV Rack is it's always doing its thing, regardless of whether or not you want it to. So if you disable a module, it's still going to be running constantly, and when you re-enable it, it'll come back together. Kind of a fun kind of Doppler-y effect. So what we'll do is we will, I'll just do one more thing to kind of showcase how you can then export this sound into a WAV file for, if you actually want to make music with VCV Rack. So we're going to go one more here, and we're going to go to the record module, which is this guy here. And then we are going to take that, and we're going to sync it up to our left, left, sorry, I had it on the wrong one, our left, and our right. So now, when I press this, it's going to prompt me for a name for the file. We'll just keep it like Untitled or whatever. Save. And then you can actually change the volume like a fade in or a fade out using this knob here. And that's the basics for how you can create music using VCV Rack. Next time we'll try and do something a little more musically interesting than this constantly looping, ping-pongy bleeping sound. But hey, that's a start to VCV Rack. Before we log off, I'm going to do one more thing real quick, which is I am going to delete these two sequencers here. And redo them so that they're nice and fresh. I guess I could have just disconnected the cable and reinitialized. Whatever. Okay, we're going to set those back to our external clock. So we're going to set them back to our resets. And there we go. So now when we start up VCV Rack, things are going to be set up in this specific way because we're going to do a template so that every time we start, we don't have to put in all these modules ourselves. We can start with a building block. So we're just going to go ahead and click Save Template. Okay. And that's going to be our basis for all things that we're going to do going forward. We might change things around, change the template at some point, include another mixer to do something like a drum track, which we can put in our both channels, left and right, or all sorts of different things that we want to do. But that's going to be it for this first session of Modular Mornings. I hope you enjoyed that introduction to this software. Bye.